Hello, Perceptive readers. This is a James PoeArtistry consultant moment. This will be placed in the thinking ability page. Uh, I will put this on the podcast first, and then I'll put it up in the video platform as well. This is a very important subject for you perceptive readers because I want you to understand what justice is. And I'm going to start off by giving you an example of what a travesty of justice is. You see, when a crime is committed, yes, there's always an investigation, but the investigation should not last so long that then there are persons who are actually still placed in the line of fire or cannon fodder in a way where it's like, okay, we'll just add that to the body count. So you can actually know of a crime being committed against this person or the other person that already have enough to go ahead and do what justice calls for. But then when human reasoning come into the matter, because sometimes, and I want to assure you, and especially if someone is studying in school now with the justice system or whatever, this is not a critique, a harsh critique. I'm just giving you an example of sometimes how travesty of justice happens. You see, there's an expression called, well, I got bigger fish to fry. Well, you know what? In this world today, just like Jesus said, you're always going to have the poor with you, or, well, guess what? You're always going to have somebody until God resolves matters that's just going to commit, bad things against people at times. And so sometimes where the reasoning comes in at is, hey, well, if we can just hold off long enough or do an investigation in this way or that way long enough, then we'll be able to stop the person who has caused the most damage, you see. Yet, all the same, how long does it take to still get to that point, to get to the person who is causing the most damage? In other words, is a whole lot of little damage is adding up so much so even more than what the so-called bigger fish or the damage that they're causing. You see, there are ways, which I won't go into, that, and I don't mean entrapment either, and I want to assure you on that. But the surveillance is of such a level today where I assure you again that it doesn't really take long drawing out or investigations at time to get to the root of this or that. But again, I don't want to go too deep into that. I want to still talk about the travesty of justice and really why persons should address matters as quickly as possible. You have Matthew chapter 5 as a reference. You have Matthew chapter 18 as a reference. Now that's something I gave so much of the background, and right now it's actually fleeing from my mind the main point that I wanted to make about the travesty of justice. It's interesting. It's been like that for the past couple of days for me. I don't know what it is. I started something that I'm not going to even tell you about. Maybe it's affecting my brain cells or what have you. But I'm sure I'll work through it. But it's a goal. That's just a side note. But back to this travesty of justice, and I'm hoping I'm going to take a few seconds while I'm still sitting here, and I hope the main point that I really want to make will come back to mind. Without me having to get off the the Telegram app. Let me see. John says, I'm just trying to recall. Okay, I talked about waiting too long to do this, or that. Or one of my points was coming to mind is that as well as persons also, are waiting to get this resolved or that resolved. Uh, I mentioned before, hopefully, more than just insurance policies, there are things put into to place that, the person really can, especially if it's robbery or a scam or something like that, can have some compensation, some way, you see, for what they have lost. I realize that does get into, insurance policies in this way or that way, which, even those type of policies normally cost, money and things of that nature. And in the economy, with the way that it is right now, with the gas prices and the food prices and things of that nature, for the record, I still really believe it's not necessary for things to be that high with inflation and things of that nature. I firmly believe that. And, when I mentioned about widows and orphans and things of that nature, you see, that's the form of worship that is pure and undefiled in God's eyes. That you look after such ones in their tribulation. And so, there's been situations where persons have been talking about, raising their prices as well. And, you have that choice to do this or do that, for your business. All I try to do is just tell persons, uh, try your best not to still get caught so much up in the wave that the next thing you know, you just keep on, putting your prices up. See, sooner or later, there would be a breaking point anyway. And that still ends up affecting the economy in adverse ways. Um, it affects widows and orphans in adverse ways. Right now, everything that we're paying for has doubled and even more, you see, than what it was even over a year ago. And my question to you is, do you feel that is even necessary? But I know that's still a side thought because I'm still trying to have come back to my mind what I was talking about with this justice, travesty of justice. And you know what? It's interesting. Like I said, it just won't come back. So I guess I won't tell you about it. Yeah, as I mentioned before, some jokes might come up about, oh, the brain fog is coming again. He's getting older, what have you. But as I said before, I really do think it's because of something else that I started, and my body will just get adjusted to it. I firmly do believe that because I actually do feel uh, uh, pretty good, and I'm happy about some results in something that, man, I tell you what, I'm just really happy about some results and something. But sometimes there's just a side effect. So I'm sorry if I talked so much about the side points right now that I wanted to share with you, that I really, the main point of what I wanted to share with you, it went right out my mind. And you know what? It may come back in another few moments, may come back tonight. And if it does, I'll just jump back on here and tell you. So for the most part, no, this is just stay in this group. Uh, and see, and that's what happens sometimes too. You get this age and you're thinking about 4 or 5 things at one time. Ah, it came back to mind. Isn't that something? It came back to mind. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, talking about the travesty of justice. In the scriptures, you know, um, God talked about, thou shalt not steal. And he also talked about recompense of what it would cost at times if somebody was caught stealing, they had to pay back sevenfold. Then there were other types of charges if you will, that can come up against a person at times. Like if someone hit somebody, assaulted someone, or what have you, did something bad in some way, and then you heard that God, he ended up he's saying eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You see, and so that was meaning, don't go overboard. Just still do what the balance scales, will call for. So sometimes we say, hey, you ended up striking this person back, then you assaulted this person, then guess what? You can get up to 40 lashes, so to speak, just to use that as an expression, as corporal punishment back then. I'm not talking about using that today. I'm just telling you that sometimes this is what happened when persons actually, broke other persons, laws or rights or what have you, and especially slaves and masters and things of that nature. But see, I still want to go along the line of where persons say eye for an eye. Okay, now persons understand that in that way. However, sometimes today, and this is when it doesn't apply. And that's why I was giving you the background about investigations and while even investigations go on, sometimes other crimes and travesties are happening to people who, once again, if justice was done in a balanced way and carried out the way that it was supposed to be, then these other persons wouldn't have never even had to be affected by it. But see, I wanted to make that clear because sometimes what persons will look at as justice is this. People can be put in a situation where instead of the justice being carried out against the person who committed the crime or the act or what have you, they are still tied a situation such together where even a peaceful individual who really still does not want to even hurt the person who hurt them, you see what I'm saying, will still be placed in such a situation where there is literally a fight and battle going on. And sometimes persons will say, well, it's an eye for an eye. So since they did that to you, then, here is the rod, so to speak, to do it back to that person. You see? And the thing is, the situation is tied such together that even the person who wants to be at peace and just say, okay, just stop what you're doing, that make no mistake about it. And I know not everybody will understand what I mean by this, but believe me, higher ups will know exactly what I'm talking about. Where it'll be like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me this situation is tied together in such a way that instead of you going ahead and meting out the judgment or what justice would call for, you mean even though I'm trying to be at peace with this person, you're still using me, the will, the rod, to hurt this person, and all I want to do is help this person. Does that sound strange to you, perceptive readers? Where no, what? Guess what? I have something that'll help you to understand it even a little bit more. Remember that discussion about a champion or a whipping boy? I encourage you to listen to that podcast, and then you will understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about. You see, that's not really the meaning or the spirit of an eye for an eye. that God was talking about. That's not it. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand that that's not in the same vein or the same spirit of what God, and I'm saying this respectfully, of what Jehovah God meant, an eye for an eye. And that's all I'm going to say, because the people, as I mentioned, who understand such matters, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Take care, Perceptive readers. And thank you for your patience.
You have just listened to the Perceptive Readers Podcast. Remember, until next time, if you read something that encourages you to improve or enhance your life for the better, it becomes your reality.